Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show in our new time slot of 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening. I'm your host, Mark Devlin, and this is Scotland's number one anti-nationalist show, going out live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm here with my co-hosts, David Griffiths and Niall Fraser. We have a great show coming up. What will we be talking about tonight, gentlemen?
Well, tonight I will be asking, has Nicola Sturgeon lost control of her party?
And tonight I'll be asking about the mess in Edinburgh.
It's a big mess indeed. And I'll be talking about how to deny the GERS report that came out today and everyone that came out before it.
Yeah, and of course we have Zoomer of the Week, do not forget.
Okay, we'll be back in just a few seconds. Right, welcome back to the show. As always, we start with a shout out to our donors who very kindly donated to get the podcast set up and to running costs as well. But an extra thank you to everyone who donated for some sound equipment for us, because we've been having a lot of trouble before the show getting the sound set up. It's a bit better tonight. We raised £400. And we're very happy with that, so we can get a new mixer, and that's going to make all the difference as well. Niall.
Yeah, and if you would like to support the show, please do donate at our website, and the link is in the description below, or go to majority.scot and hit the donate button. Everything you can give, big or small, is much appreciated. And if you cannot give monetarily, then your job this evening is to hit that share button. Thank you very much. I see comments are already filtering in. Brilliant.
Indeed. And as usual, we would like to thank our friends at UK Union Voice and at United Against Separation for supporting the show by letting us broadcast directly to their Facebook pages, from where I know many of you guys are watching tonight.
And you can also watch on YouTube. You can subscribe and get alerts. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And if you're watching this right now, even if you're watching Facebook, please do it after the show. Go to YouTube and subscribe there. You'll get alerts, and it will help us once we get to 1,000, we can do a lot more stuff. And the show will be pushed out to more people.
Mm-hmm. Please do like, share, comment. I see the comments are coming in brilliantly. Tell your friends, extend the reach at a click of a button. The good comments get read in the show. Please do keep them short, no essays, as we kind of get them all on screen. And we'll get as many read as we humanly can, guys.
Great, now all that's done, we've got a little bit of majority news. This week I was on TalkTV enlightening their viewers about the majority, that's you lot watching, we hope, views on Nicola Sturgeon. Have a listen to this.
Why not then hold another referendum as Nicola Sturgeon is pushing for?
Well, we won the first one. Why on earth would we hold another one? And Nicola Sturgeon agreed, as Ted said, that it would be the result would be decisive, not divisive, as it turned out, and it would be a result that everyone would respect. Now, here we are. I mean, the day after, basically, she didn't respect the result. And we, my organisation, the Majority, aims to be a voice for the majority of Scots who do not want a second referendum at all. We do not, and in fact, even today, there was a poll released by the Daily Mail, and it said that only 29% of Scots want a referendum next year. Nicola Sturgeon just will not listen to the Scottish people. That's the problem.
Brilliant, Mark.
Oh, thank you, Niall. That's I think one of the things we're beginning to get our voice heard a little bit more, and that's why it's important to support this not podcast. You call it the old name. Support the show as well. The more viewers we get, the more power we have, the more we can amplify your voice. Well, Mary said that was refreshing and spirited. You can see the whole video on our YouTube channel, where you should subscribe. Right, coming up, Niall's going to be talking a lot of rubbish. No, he's going to be talking about rubbish. David's going to be talking about mutiny on the good ship SNP, and I'll be talking about how to ignore Scotland's deficit. Thank you for your support there from the comments. I think that's great. Some people saw that. That's great. Fame at last. All right. In a moment, the GERS figures. But first, we're going to have a quick chat about Lord Frost's intervention into the debate, constitutional debate. An article in the Telegraph, he said that it was time to stop calling the UK four nations. Where is it? Here we go. Okay. The SNP has to be defeated, not appeased. David, what did you think of that?
Absolutely wonderful and so heartening to hear these words from Lord Frost. The whole tone of the article, right from the headline, which you just mentioned there, was right on the front foot. I thought that was terrific. And what all Lord Frost did really is to state several facts which are very rarely spoken, such as, for example, when he said the UK is a unitary state. We're not a confederation. We're not a federation. We're not a group of nations whose members just voluntarily join and can leave when they want. That's not what we are. As he pointed out, the Acts of Union, firstly in 1707 and then in 1801, made the UK firstly Great Britain when it was just Scotland and England, and then the UK when it was Ireland added, as a country, a state, and that's what we are. Now, that's often glossed over. We hear all this four nations nonsense. He also reminded readers that all Scots are British. And indeed, he made the point that citizens of Northern Ireland are additionally British. They may have dual citizenship if they want to call themselves Irish, but they are British. Now, these are facts. These are irrefutable facts which are not stated enough, if at all, by many politicians. Why not? Because they are considered inflammatory to Scottish and Irish nationalists who, of course, don't like to think of themselves as British. Unlucky guys, because you are British, as Lord Frost.
Well, we even had today Nicola Sturgeon's just saying that she was Scottish and British. I don't know what she's up to, really. What is this all about? She spends her whole life trying to say that she's not British, she hates Britain, and then she's like, oh, well, I actually like it. I think her supporters must be going daft with this kind of stuff. Lord Frost, David Frost, whatever you want to call him, also called for a Clarity Act with 75% of seats held by pro-Indie parties for 10 years. This idea of a Clarity Act is becoming, I think, quite stronger in the public consciousness. Now, I must say, as you both know, that I think we should just ban secession outright. But perhaps politically, it's easier to make a Clarity Act. What do you think about that, Niall?
Well, it's certainly much easier to have a Clarity Act, to put it all in writing, to make sure the stipulations on when we can have a referendum, as opposed to just having a wildcat referendum. It's absolutely perfect. I mean, Lord Frost is bang on the money here, guys. Yep. He's bang on the money. He's telling people the truth that the SNP voters simply do not want to hear, guys. That's what's happening.
Well, I think it's interesting that it was your colleagues not your colleague, your party leader, Jamie Blackett, who basically first broached this idea in an article in the Times maybe 2 years ago almost, was it? Yep. I think last year. I can't remember exactly.
A long time ago.
Yes, but now it's becoming common currency, I think. And I think we've had so long of this idea that the UK is somehow something that can be easily broken up. It's a union. And they're trying all these splitting hairs, and try to say this is it's a union, or we've got a claim of right, or we've got there's four nations and all this, and hardly anyone's just saying, wait a minute, this is a country, and other countries don't spend their time doing this. They don't spend their time going, yeah, we should break ourselves up. What's the best way to break ourselves up? I mean, it's insanity, actually. In fact, many countries have fought wars to keep themselves together, notably the American Civil War. Mm-hmm. And where Lincoln his primary duty was to the Union. He said, "This is a united one country." That's what he said. I mean, people can say it was about slavery and all that, and it was as well. But really, it was about maintaining a single country.
That's right. That was it. There was southern states seceded. That they tried to. They announced that they we're breaking away. And he said, absolutely no, you're not. And so, yeah, that's what happened. And I think a Clarity Act, I think it's going to be inevitable, guys. The reason being, if we don't enshrine something in binding Westminster legislation, then we're going to carry on like this forever. The SNP will carry on asking for a referendum if they don't like the Prime Minister or if they don't like a decision that's been made by the UK government. You cannot go on like that, because at the moment we know they're taking their eye off the ball. They're not running Scotland. They're not governing the place at all. So something's got to change. And I suspect
as it stands, the SNP have got nothing to lose. Nothing to lose at all. They can go on, ad infinitum, just forever.
Well, I don't know exactly about that. I think they are losing. Once the Supreme Court thing, she fails there, then they're going to be a crisis. And in some way, offering them an olive branch of a Clarity Act is, I'm not entirely sure that's good, because they can use that to just foment more grievance and so on. I think basically, like most countries, France, Germany, the United States, we need an indivisibility clause at the very minimum and say this is an indivisible country. Otherwise, this will go on, because the thing that keeps these nationalists going is a tiny glimmer of hope. Look how little hope that they've got right now.
Yeah.
They've got no hope of a Supreme Court thing, and they're grasping at straws for this de facto referendum. But it still keeps them going, right? So why just cut? I just think you should maybe just cut it entirely off.
It's the scene in Dumb and Dumber where Jim Carrey says, "So you're telling me there's a chance?" Exactly. That's exactly what's happening with these independence voters. They're being led down the garden path.
Yep.
But they won't be very happy when they get to the bottom of the path and they realise they've been led in the wrong direction, guys. This is maybe lead on to what you're saying later on, David. But
absolutely, yeah, I touched on that a lot later on. I think you're quite right. I mean, there's going to be a day of reckoning very soon coming for these people, because this is the mistake she's made. She said, we're definitely going to have a referendum. It's going to be in the first half of this term. She's increasingly desperate because she knows she can't do it. So they're already making excuses for it not taking place. And they're trying to frame the next general election as some sort of bastardized, if I can use that word, referendum. What a load of nonsense. And I know you got a bit annoyed with a TV commentator who was basically making excuses for that and saying, oh, yeah, it's quite normal. I mean, an election's just really a referendum anyway.
Oh, yes. Well, that's
channeling is Emma Harper,
that will come up a little bit later. As usual, the usual suspects were saying poo-pooing Lord Frost, and they're saying, oh no, we can't do that. We can't do these things. We can't stand up to the nationalists. It only make them stronger. Well, we've had 14 years of not standing up to them, and it only did make them stronger. How about actually standing up to them and fighting back on them, auditing them, giving them a Clarity Act, not giving them a Clarity Act, imposing the strictest terms of a Clarity Act onto them and saying like it or lump it, and so on, right? Fight back. Or they will roll over. They'll continue to roll over.
Well, we need to keep putting these hurdles in their way. The Clarity Act. We need to keep putting the hurdles down so they have to overcome them every single time. Right, and coming back in a second, we're going to continue with a chat about how to deny Scotland's financial situation. As the message says, please like and subscribe. Go to YouTube, like, subscribe, press the button, and that will make us happy, and it will make YouTube happy, and we'll get more views. Right, today we had GERS. It's GERS Day, as it says in the thing just underneath. GERS numbers were released, which is the General Expenditure and Revenue Scotland, nothing to do with a certain football club. So, and it tells us how much Scotland raises in taxes and how much it spends. It's a fairly simple thing. I mean, It's not, of course, complex to collect all those numbers and so on, but it's fairly simple in what it does. And I highly recommend that if you do want to understand that, you go to where is it here? This Fraser of Allender Institute thing here. Thanks, Tommy. This thing we did here, this report that they make every year when it comes out, and they basically explain it all and what the statistics show and so on. But I mean, the headline numbers are really that, of course, that Scotland spends more than it takes in. Now, I'm going to have to read these because I can't remember offhand. Latest figures show that the net fiscal balance for 2021 to 22 was minus £23 billion, which represents minus 12% of GDP. And
while that is a big fall from last year, primarily because of COVID, it's still a bit of a disaster. And to put that into per person terms, that is basically in revenue, Scotland raised £221 less per head, per individual person. While on expenditure, Scotland spent £1,963 per head, again, more than UK average. That means a family of four benefits by £8,000 a year from being in the UK. So, David, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, I thought it was very interesting that Spinney came straight out and started spinning furiously to say, "Oh no, he gave his particular interpretation of the figures," but the figures show very clearly that Scotland has done far worse than the rest of the UK. And so, in terms of like the deficit, in terms of i.e. the difference between revenues raised in taxes and public spending, so it's well, somebody made the point that this isn't a problem right now for Scotland while it's got the UK to bail it out, but it's going to be a massive problem if Scotland ever did become independent, because this stuff's all going to be funded somehow, and it really does raise very clearly lays out the fact that Scotland independence. The numbers simply don't work. The numbers do not stack up. Scotland is comparatively an unwealthy, a poor nation, a poor country, if you like, or a poor region of the very more wealthy UK, particularly the southeast. So it just lays these figures bare and speaks the truth irrefutably. And people can deny it, and they'll spend, but the figures are right there, and it's from a trusted government source. It's the Scottish government's own figures, for heaven's sake. So it's just more of the same, and it shows that we are massively better off by being within the UK, without any question.
Well, Spinney, I could call it John.
Spinney, that's a great name, a great unintentional nickname.
Yes, spinning faster than a washing machine or dry or whatever. Here he was on Twitter basically saying it shows that Scotland's fiscal position is recovering, and then he told basically what might be considered, I think, lies. I think is the correct word for it. Basically, and trying to spin this into saying that, but even. Basically, they're trying to say, well, even without North Sea receipts, the record revenue generated was sufficient to cover all day-to-day devolved spending, as well as all social security spending in Scotland, including the state pension. Yes, okay, but there are other things that are reserved that are spent on Scotland. Just in one example, I've got a big list here, and I'm not going to read it out. One example is defence, £4 billion straight away, and HMRC. And so on. These services would have to be replicated to some way to preserve transport spending. Foreign aid, there's a whole load of them as well, and they add up to billions and billions of pounds. And they're not going to be able to cut those easily, much as they would like to try and cut them. They're not going to be able to do that.
Indeed.
I was going to say, but one of the things about GERS Day, I suppose, is it's also GERS kind of myths day, right? When they've got when they come up with all these things, it's not real results or anything. Anything to say about that, Niall?
Not really, but I mean, it's. I'm sorry, I'm not much help this evening, though. I mean, it is obviously. I mean, straight out the bat, you've got John Spinney just out there spinning his wheels as fast as he possibly can, and. To me, they're all arguing about the same figures. I mean, nobody can make head or tails yet.
Well, I think that is one of the issues, that people don't really understand numbers all that well and don't understand the deficit. And it needs to be perhaps explained to people in simpler terms. I mean, if you say, look, £2,000 per head and you say £8,000 per family, people kind of understand that. £8,000 in services, that's a lot of money, that can be spent. And it's obviously not necessarily spent on every family, but it's spent on, different things depending on what the need is. So the question, the point is then, if Scotland would ever become independent, then where would it get that shortfall from? It would have to either increase taxes or decrease services. Now, it's not going to be able to increase taxes because
a combination of both, probably.
Well, but even as it stands, people who are earning quite a lot of money will choose not to live here or to move away. If you're a doctor earning £100,000 and you end up getting taxed £5,000, £6,000, £10,000 more than someone just 50 miles across the border, you're going to move. That's inevitably you're going to do that. So the ability to raise money from taxation really is is a challenge. So basically what you're looking at is this mega austerity, and this has even been acknowledged in their Growth Commission report as well. So I think there's not much they can do about that. But the cult, as it were, don't take any of that on. They just say, oh, it's all estimates, it's all made up, nonsense. It doesn't reflect what an independent Scotland would actually have. And here's a point here from Airwood 99. They say oil and gas revenues are increasing, but they want to shut down for fossil fuel extraction. The typical nationals will want to have their cake, or their oil, as it were, and spend it. So it just seems like further delusion, I suppose.
It is. I mean, you're right, Mark. And also, all that the SNP can come up with is obfuscation. And that's why Swinney's making this point, saying, oh, that's enough to cover pensions. Well, that's just to try and put the seed of doubt in people's minds to say, oh, yeah, maybe Scotland could be able to pay for our own pensions, or maybe we'd be all right. Absolute nonsense. Seriously, it's this dangerous stuff. And it was really, really heartening to see a lot of criticism, a lot of very overt criticism of Swinney, including Chris Musson, who's easily the best political editor in Scotland. Chris Musson, the Sun, actually asked, how can the Deputy First Minister get away with this? And he's absolutely right, because it just shows you that the SNP can only come up with half-truths and deception to try and make the case for independence. They're trying to force through a referendum when 2/3 of the country don't even want it. So they're on to plums, as the saying goes. There's no way they're going to get this. It's not going to happen. And this just proves it. And the hysterical reaction from them just proves it even more so. So every year it's the same. As you say, the GERS myths are all trotted out. It's only an estimate. It's only a guess. And what would be the case? It would be very different if we were independent. All that would be different would be they'd be able to borrow money. But would they? I mean, they would have to borrow money at punitive rates because they'd have no credit rating, etc., no central bank, no lender of last resort. Scotland would be immeasurably poorer if we were independent, and these figures make that very clear, and the SNP know it, guys, and that's why they're on to a loser here.
Yeah, but most of them don't. I mean, this is the thing. They don't care. They'd rather be, we say this often, they would rather be kings of the ashes.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Than, be princes in share, right? So it's a very selfish ideology, nationalism, and it really is. It's very anti-socialist, right? The idea that London and the southeast is a revenue-generating area of the UK, and it shares that tax revenue across the country. Now, if Scotland managed to give some oil and gas revenues in the past, it shared them back. And if it so happened that Wales or Cornwall, found some new mineral or something like that, then it'd be shared amongst the rest of us. That's the way it works. Sharing, pulling and sharing. And what they're trying to do is just take all the good bits for themselves and draw a line, take the good bits for themselves. What's mine is what's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine. That's exactly the way they work. So, all right. Thank you for your comments coming in. Was a comment from Michael, I think, there. Basically, GERS is the most authoritative document about Scotland's finances. Everything comes from there. Everything else nationalists are saying is a lie, basically a lie. A misdirection, it's the whiskey tax and all this nonsense, just made up stuff. No. And we need to get past that and stop it. I think a lot of it actually comes from this idea that the Scots are not getting enough, and somehow some kind of inferiority thing or superiority thing where we deserve more, whatever than we get. We actually do get quite a lot, and I think that the next real issue should be how that is spent, and that's where the audit should come in.
Here.
Coming up. We will have, Dave's going to talk about has Nicola Sturgeon lost control of her party? Please do remember to subscribe. Tell your friends even about this show. This is the only place where we can talk about this. And that thing on TalkTV, have you seen other people talking about that? No, we do not want a second referendum. That's the thing. We can just say that clearly on TV. That's what we want to be doing. Anyway, back in a sec. Right, David, you're up.
Okay. Right. I'm asking this question in all seriousness, people. Has Nicola Sturgeon lost control of her party? Now, the reason I ask this is, as we all know, the SNP has a stated policy which forbids criticism of the party by members and elected representatives. You cannot speak ill of the party in public. They just say that bequeathed for ND, all this stuff. Just keep quiet till now, and everything will be fine. That's been their policy for some time. And normally it holds, because you very rarely hear SNP politicians criticising the party. It's very, very rare. But this week, I've noticed some public criticism, not only of the SNP, but also of the First Minister from some high-profile SNP figures, including politicians and commentators. So earlier this week, I think it was on Monday, at a fringe event in Edinburgh, Joanna Cherry, the Member of Parliament, revealed her view that the First Minister and the party's Westminster leader, Ian Blackford, had given Miss Cherry no support whatever when she was subjected to rape threats at the time of the discussion about gender. She came in for an awful lot of criticism, very, very harsh and horrible stuff, and they were no help to her whatever. Ms Cherry went on to point out that Patrick Grady had received far more support from the party when he actually sexually harassed the teenager than Miss Cherry did when she was actually threatened with sexual attack of herself as the victim. So really appalling. But Miss Cherry, even more fascinating to me, went on to say that she thinks an SNP leadership election is overdue and that she, Miss Cherry, would like to be First Minister herself one day. So what did you think of that, gents?
Oh, no.
I don't know why Joanna Cherry is in the SNP. I just don't understand that.
No.
In fact, I don't understand why most intelligent people are in the SNP, but particularly in her case, you know, she's a QC. She understands the legal issue, right? She knows what the law is. She knows there's no chance of the Supreme Court doing it. And I think she came up with a scheme actually as well of making the referral. Dorothy being Lord Advocate making an early referral, but that's not going to work. She must know that that's not going to work, right? And to me, the interesting part of Cherry's speech, or whatever it was, the talk that she had, was that she said that if she lived in England, she would definitely be a member of the Labour Party. I have great affection for the Labour Party after independence. I think the parties will realign themselves, and I'd probably end up in some sort of Scottish Democratic Left Party or Scottish Labour Party after independence. Right. Well, we all know that this after independence thing is utter nonsense.
She's lost it.
The SNP will continue their grip and power. Why on earth would their voters not want them to continue, especially after they got independence? And why would the people they had voted to get it, not want to do it? It's not utter nonsense. And remember, last week we had that guy on who said basically they wanted to ban UK parties, right? Anyway, so basically she's been approached by Labour and she's been approached by Alba as well. But I mean, why isn't she just in the Labour Party? She could be doing more there, and Labour's in the ascendant now. Move over and get some other stuff. What do you think of that, David?
I couldn't agree more. Now you go now.
I mean, I think she's pulled the trigger at the exact wrong time. It's not the right time for a leadership battle, and I don't think she's going to be able to beat the Queen, guys. This is really. I mean, all the pieces are in place. I mean, I'm going to talk about this later on in the show, but I don't want to say too much. But I just don't think it's the right time for Joanna Cherry to be pulling moves like this. It's not the right time at all. And Mark's right. Why did she not just join the Labour Party? I mean, the SNP are a dying party. It's a ship that's already half sunk, guys. It's half sunk. And yet she wants to be the captain of a sinking ship. No.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Ridiculous.
True.
Ridiculous.
Very true indeed. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's a strange time for her to be saying this at this moment. But what struck me was the fact that she felt empowered to say this and to be so outspoken in her criticism of Ms Sturgeon, and to actually say it was, I guess it's expanding on a theme that Sturgeon herself began when she was interviewed by Ian Dale, and she said, "Oh yeah, I mean, it's not certain that will be the leader at the next Holyrood election." Well, I think we're going to see yet more discussion about that in weeks to come. But what it did prove to me, all of this, Cherry's outburst about joining the Labour Party, it proves that the SNP are simply a single issue party. They're not they're not a genuine bona fide party with a constitution as such. They only believe in one thing, and they made that abundantly clear. And the fact that they're going to treat the next election in those terms, as in standing on a single issue, is extraordinary. And this is why it's just unbelievable that commentators are saying, yeah, that's quite normal. No, it's not. It's nothing of the sort. You don't stand in a general election on one issue.
I mean, if she actually believes that she's going to stand in a single issue, then she's doing that now. She shouldn't be talking about energy policy. She shouldn't be talking about anything else she talks about. She shouldn't be going to her book, things in the fringe. Not all she'd be doing is saying, we're going to do this de facto referendum, whatever it is, because that's, practice what you preach. I don't think that's really what's going to happen. Now, I noticed also that the usual appeasers were on there. So here we have Kenny Farquharson, to Times appeaser-in-chief, who's saying SNP rebel Joanna Cherry would lead from the front lines. And he writes this whole article not mentioning Labour at all. Right, even though the other newspapers, that was one of the main things. Well, she could actually be in Labour. Oh, that's quite interesting. But he's like, well, she's going to be the saviour of the SNP when Nicola Sturgeon leaves, to offering a more radical alternative to Sturgeon. What's more radical than Sturgeon's unconstitutional power grab, an attempt to pervert the general election into a referendum? What is more radical than that? What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. What could be more radical than that? She's already tearing up all the rules as things stand. So how on earth could you be more radical than that? I never get what Farquharson is getting at. I mean, Alex Massey makes a lot of sense, but Farquharson, I think he's just there as an agent provocateur. I think he just like clickbait stuff. It's rubbish.
Yeah, they've got to keep the never-ending story going on. I think that's
exactly. And on that very theme about the never-ending, some of you will know independence campaigner Robin McAlpine, big-time supporter of independence, had a bit of a fallout with the SNP, it's fair to say, when he was, if you like, in support of Alex Salmond at the time of the trial. So he's, if you like, he's slightly leaning towards Alban more than the SNP these days. But nonetheless, he produced a blog, I think it was on Monday, and the contents were extraordinary, really. I'll give you a few little snippets. He said, Nicola Sturgeon's vision of independence doesn't go beyond joining the EU and her head appearing on stamps. Wow, this is an independent report.
we would struggle to make arguments this far.
But I mean, it's like, don't give her ideas. Don't give her ideas about the stamps. Come on.
Exactly. But I mean, he absolutely tore into particularly Sturgeon's leadership. And he said about the case for independence, he said that there is no chance of independence happening right now. It's as if they don't want independence. And he said there's no economic vision for Scottish independence from the SNP other than, oh, look, there are countries doing better than us. Well, we can be like them. And that's it. That's the extent of their economic blueprint. He went on to say, next year, independent supporters will once more be marched up the hill, only to be marched down again, at which point they will become a laughingstock. Absolutely right.
Already a laughingstock, sadly.
Yeah, indeed.
But they're becoming increasingly, though, more concentrated, though.
Yes.
As people sort of abandon ship, the ones that stay there, they get more concentrated and more unhinged, as it were.
Indeed. Unhinged.
Yeah, well, that was always a thing I thought would happen. That if you split the nutters from the decent people, and people see, well, these are the people that support this cause. These people draped in flags and waving stuff and talking about the claim of right. These are the people that are the core of this movement. And most people are like, no, I don't think so.
Absolutely. And this is why I always point out stuff like when Rosanna Cunningham, she's produced some really bizarre stuff. She produced a video of Michael Collins yesterday or the day before saying, oh, this has got my Irish ancestry senses tingling. And she's talking about Michael Collins, the Dublin leader of whatever it was, the pro-treaty guy in Dublin. I mean, what on earth has that got to do with Scottish independence?
Nonsense. Utter nonsense.
It is nonsense. But McAlpine, I'll just finish this off. He wasn't finished by in saying that. He then said the SNP is beyond a mess. It isn't even trying hard in its disinformation anymore. In fact, that's like something we would say, guys. It's great stuff. Most eminently of all, he said, when talking about the independence movement as a whole, its leadership is the problem and it's the source of all its mess. So everyone...
They kind of think they've got this idea that changing leader is going to make a difference. It's not. It can't. I mean, Nicola Sturgeon is the high watermark of this movement. Maybe even Alex Salmond was a high watermark of the movement. Nicola Sturgeon is managing to decline. I read the McAlpine article, tweeted it out on our Twitter channel. Please subscribe to there for the latest tweets. But he splits the movement into the Yes movement, which isn't actually moving, into three parts. There's the pocket stuffers who follow the cause because they get paid. Right?
Oh,
civil society.
I love this.
600 million in Scottish government funding,
yep.
Right? Which is how much it costs to run the Scottish government, goes to Nicola Sturgeon's friends and maintains that. Plus all the other stuff beyond that, NHS and so on.
I wonder if he was a former pocket stuffer.
Yeah, perhaps. The second group is the high information voters who know that Sturgeon's game is up, but they won't admit it. They're the Wish for Indie people, and they're waiting for a leadership change. And then he says the third group is the rank and file members, SNP members who still think there's going to be a referendum in 2023. Right, so basically the people at the top, the pocket stuffers and the high information people, oh no, they're just along for it, and the people who are getting ripped off are the people at the bottom.
Classic.
It's a sad state of affairs. Coming up, we are going to talk about some rubbish. I think that's going to be Niall's thing.
Right, so I'm sure you will have known or have seen the levels of rubbish that are piling up in Edinburgh during its busiest period, guys, the Fringe Festival, where when I used to live in Edinburgh, they said what the population doubled, tripled, whatever the number is during the festival time. So it is rather a really critical time for the city. So if you wanted a visual metaphor for the SNP's disdain for the little people, then it's this. It's right this video mark.
Oh, okay.
This time last week, we got queues right up the seating area here. Fuck us to stop at the council. I don't blame them for taking strike action. This has to be done.
It's just wild.
Yeah, shocking mess, indeed.
Get that away. So the video was actually from the National, right? We'll just say to say that, but it's funny that they are pointing out the problems of created by their own side, guys. I mean, it's not just Edinburgh that's plagued with this sort of thing, and plague's the right word to use, I think. Right, so imagine you're a tourist and you land in Scotland for the first time to attend the Fringe Festival, only to be confronted with this level of mankiness, guys.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable. It really is. Is Edinburgh now twinned with Govan Hill?
Yes.
You see, we're changing the signs, but we'll better put it in Gaelic. Edinburgh twinned with Govan Hill.
Oh, don't forget Scots as well now. 3 languages.
Right, of course. We'll get Billy Katie to do a video for it. Right, so, and I mean, Govan Hill's the only other place in Scotland that I've seen this level of refuse, guys. It is the only place. Last year I was in Govan Hill, which is Sturgeon's own constituency, guys. And I made the warning that in an independent Scotland, our entire nation would be Govan Hill overnight. Well, I was wrong, guys. I was wrong. We don't even need independence in order for that to happen, guys. It's just spreading. And, it's not going to end anytime soon. I hope the pay offer can be resolved rather quickly. I mean, the first pay offer of 5% was just a joke. I mean, sorry, I want to see Sturgeon out there where Marigold's on, picking up the rubbish herself, guys. Let me know if that interests of yours. Would you like to see Nicola Sturgeon out there where Marigold's picking up the rubbish and sweeping up? I think it would be the best thing ever, but I don't want to give her PR advice. Have any of you been into Edinburgh recently? Have you seen this firsthand?
Not for a while. I haven't seen it.
Not been for a while, but I mean, this is the problem with the lack of council funding. I had a video we posted on our channels earlier today, and it was from a supporter of the show, and he works for Falkirk. He's a councillor for Falkirk, and they're basically just saying, well, how can we deal with this? Because the Scottish government is getting all this money from the UK government and not passing it on. The Scottish government is spending it on its own priorities, and we don't exactly know what those priorities are. And usually in what we think is in giveaways and waste. But the thing is that money, almost every council, and if you're in an SNP council, is doubly bad, because of course an SNP council is not going to challenge the SNP government in Holyrood. So you do get to that stage of decline. I think that's what you're saying, Niall, where where it just gets worse and worse and worse. And why would anyone want to break away from the UK if they can't even get their bins emptied?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Indeed. I just want to mention a comment here, which is kind of along these lines, guys. One comment from one of our viewers, Ronnie Bragg, is talking about how he came to the UK, came to Scotland, voted to remain in UK, but believe that the Tories have lied. And he spends most of his message there saying, it's not that I'm anti-English, I am English. In fact, it's just I can't stand the right-wing lurch of Westminster. Well, Ronnie, can I suggest you maybe vote Labour in that case? Because there's no point voting SNP, because that's not doing any good, is it? You vote SNP dutifully every election, and what happens? What changes? Nothing. So try voting Labour, then you might not get a right-wing government. I'm not being flippant here. I'm being absolutely... I'm being serious. If you want to see a change of government in Westminster, there's no point in voting for a regional protest party, because that's not going to affect anything. So that's genuine advice.
Getting a lot of great comments coming in here. Much money from ring-fenced indie fund and foreign offices. The pretend the embassies, guys, that money could be used to give a good pay rise to all. Absolutely true. And that's money that should not be being spent at all.
Yes.
That's very true. Cornelius Borthwedge with the classic, it's Westminster's fault. It's only a matter of time before that gets trotted out, guys.
I think he's just joking there with that one, though.
Yeah, of course it is. Oh, yeah. Frustrated, overpaid bin men strike. I'm not sure about that. I mean, see the payoff that they got 5%. It doesn't even nearly cover the cost. Well, the rise in inflation, not even a bit. So they're actually they're doing themselves with 5%.
Right. Well, these things happen, as Nicola Sturgeon would say, and she'll try and shift the blame as much as she can. She tried to shift the blame this week for her, not for her energy company that she didn't do it. A load of nonsense. She just straight up lying about why she didn't do it. Oh, it was COVID. No, it was nothing to do with COVID. You just didn't do it. They wanted a headline and then couldn't be arsed doing it. And this is the same thing. They don't care about governance. They don't care about good governance. They don't want to do things well. They only want to do one thing: get independence. And so they'll just scream and shout as much about that as they can, and everything else can go to hell.
If you would indulge me for a second as well, Mark, as well. So, I mean, everyone, they've probably seen the news about the rubbish and maybe sick to the back teeth you're talking about. But there was a wee bonus clip that I wanted included in the show tonight. It's Kieran Jenkins for Channel 4 interviewing Sturgeon on the rise in energy costs. I just wanted to crowbar it in here.
I don't have it handy though. Sorry, I didn't know you wanted that one.
Apologies.
Okay, yeah, it will take me too long to get it. Sorry, but have you got the? Just tell us the gist of it.
So the gist of it is, last 2 weeks or 2 weeks ago on the show, we were talking about the Scottish resistance guys. Remember this? They stormed the Scottish Power offices to demand to see the boss and lower energy prices and all that. And what I suggested to Sean was maybe you should protest the not-for-profit Scottish energy company that didn't happen. Well, Kieran Jenkins picked up on that line and quizzed Sturgeon about it because she was at a cost of living crisis or a summit or whatever it is with all these energy bosses, and he mentioned Centrica, who are giving it millions even just this half of the year. So it did pull it up on the not-for-profit energy company, and I think it just needs to be our tone of voice in the whole thing was really defeatist. She goes on to talk about one, excuses are just becoming really, really tired. The COVID excuse for the 2017 this not-for-profit energy company was formulated. So COVID had nothing to do with that situation, and it's just becoming such a sorry excuse for everything these days, and it just becomes tiresome.
Just to add there, to add to your point, didn't she say in 2017 that this not-for-profit energy company would be in place by 2020, which is when COVID started? So
yes,
at all,
and she also had the audacity to say, well, even if we had this company, it wouldn't make any difference. So while at the same time, she's saying to the UK government, do something about this crisis, and she admits she can't actually do much about it because the prices are out with government control. The mitigation of it can be done perhaps by the UK government because it actually has some money, unlike the Scottish government.
Why did we throw up? I mean, I've lived and grew up in Scotland watching all these wind farms rise up around me.
Yep.
Why is my energy costs not gone down? It's us that has to look at these things.
Well, I mean, everyone-
why
surely
did we put them up?
Surely everyone
did we
knows that wind farms are a transfer of money from rich environmentalists who are just environmentalists in it for the money, transfer of money from poor people to those rich environmentalists. That's what it's all about. Everyone should know that. Anyway, it's a massive transfer of wealth by the age-old technique of making people feel guilty. Oh, you're doing a bad thing. Pay us to make you feel better. I mean, that's what it comes down to. In my humble opinion. If you would like to subscribe to the show, we would love that. Please do so. Go to YouTube and do that. But alternatively, you're on Facebook. You can tell your friends, tomorrow you're at work or you're hanging out. Hey, I heard these guys at the Majority Show. You should watch that. It's really something that's good.
Absolutely.
That's the kind of thing. We're just helping you out here on how you should do that. Coming up, it's the highlight of the week. It is Zoomer of the Week. I think David's first this time.
First up, okay. I've got a rather lightweight figure, I think you'd say, this week is my nomination. So my nomination for the Zoomer of this week is Scottish actor Douglas Henshall. Now, you can usually find Dougie on Twitter criticising Tories furiously and plugging the TV show Shetland in which he appears. Have you not got press officers for that, Dougie pal? Anyway, recently he started posting really poor quality tweets in support of independence, and I actually thought it was parody for a while because I'll give you an example. This week he came up with this belter. Why is it that the leaders of all the English political parties, note, or potential leaders feel the need to tell the people of Scotland that they can't have a second referendum? Who is it to placate? I can't figure it out. And of course, it was pointed out to him that they're actually UK parties. We'd send 59 MPs to Westminster, Doug, you remember? Oh, yeah, even worse then. It's rubbish, just absolute nonsense. Anyway, he's a huge fan of the EU. He hates the fact that Scotland's been dragged out of the EU against its will. And he was reminded when he was talking about this that independence campaigners in Scotland tried hard to have Scotland taken out of the EU in 2014. And his reply to that was, well, have you considered we'd be back in by now?
That's a good one.
Idea. The only problem is there are several countries, I think it's 7, who've been in the queue for EU membership since way before 2014, not one of which has subsequently joined since then. They're all effectively in a queue right now. So it just struck me that, Scottish levies making public statements and very poorly worded and poorly argued points in support of independence is nothing new. That happens a lot.
Well, I think they're revealing their kind of Anglophobia, really, aren't they? I mean, this is the thing about that. I mean, when you start talking about English, what was it? English
political parties.
English political parties. He sounds like that guy, that nutter in the car last week, right? We want to ban English, parties. I mean, that's the same thing. It's the exact same way of thinking. It's like that somehow, this idea of Scottish, not British, which was part of the TalkTV thing that I was on. It's this idea, I'm Scottish and nothing to do with, they're English and we're different. It's not like that at all. We're all British and we're not that much different really at all. I mean,
I find that quite interesting what you said there. I mean, it's almost as if the nationalism mask has totally slipped at this point, and I put that down to you and your hard work, Mark. And honestly, I do. Because you see all these other outlets are now running with the nationalist line. That's now their message. So now that message is in the open, what happens to the people that are nationalists? Well, I think they're actually becoming more emboldened. We're starting to see the term English more often. We've seen Alex Salmond just recently in an interview complained about England.
Yes.
So we'll see the mask is just progressively slipping further every day now. So we might see some heated language.
Well, we saw that, of course, that stuff. Anglophobia against James Webb. No, what's his name? Cook. Yes. Is it James? Yep. Anyway, the other day, are you really from Scotland?
How long have you been in Scotland?
How long have you been here?
You've been in Scotland, that type of thing. And we're seeing it more and more. Salmond, as you pointed out, was interviewed by a Catalonian newspaper or something. Said at one point, he says, "Oh, the English Empire."
English Empire.
And he would correct himself. The British Empire But, you know, for us who notice these things, it's
Yes.
quite revealing. It's like Scotland was, you know, was the empire.
Yep.
That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It was a big part of the
Empire.
He wants to
empire.
downplay our involvement
Of
in it.
course. So they want to do. They want to always try and divide us and say they're the bad ones and we're the good ones. It's full on Scottish supremacism. This Henshall guy, is he actually a decent actor?
Well,
I've never seen Shetland in my life.
I've never watched it. He was in a one of those plays that Peter McDougall wrote for Billy Connolly. I don't know if you remember, about a bank robbery. You remember that? I don't know if I'm losing you here, guys, but there was a bank robbery, and Billy Connolly was a gangland leader, and Henshall played a policeman, and that was like his first break. He was good in that. It was a good play. But at Shetland, I'm never all that interested in.
Oh, well, you know, it's annoying sometimes.
I'm sure he's a great actor. I'm sure he's an amazing actor, and we all need to watch him. But really, I think he should maybe take more time with his tweets. That's all.
I agree.
All we should say.
This is why I've made him the Zoom of the Week. Not being unpleasant. It's just you're not arguing your points very well, mate. You know, if you want to make these points, get more into the detail, but don't just say, "Oh, it's all English people." And this is what I think, as you both have said, if the nationalists have got nothing to fall back on other than Anglophobia, that's when the game's up, because people in Scotland are not racist. They are not. They really aren't. You might get a lot of people trying to stir up that kind of unrest, but people in Scotland are not nationalist by nature. And I've said this several times. I'm still shocked that Scotland has fallen foul of nationalism, and I think, and I really
we're going to have to change the "we're all Jack" joke. Tamsin's Waynes to except if they're Tories, so if they're other English, they're no joke. Tamsin's Waynes.
Exactly.
Right, moving on.
Very quickly, Tommy Boy, Down Among the Big Boys. That was the name of that play. That's worth watching. It's very well. Connolly's great in it. Have a look if you can find it, guys. Thanks, Tommy.
I'm up. My Zoom of the week is STV's Colin McKay. The other day, he was on TV shilling for the SNP, saying that he could actually use, or they could actually use, a general election as a de facto referendum. Here is the full clip. I hope this isn't too long, actually.
I mean, the Scottish Government, the people I've spoken to certainly don't really expect to win in the Supreme Court, but it will be a significant test. I think the timing of it, almost by chance, is absolutely fascinating. The day after Nicola Sturgeon's speech to conference is going to be fascinating to see what she has to say to the party at that point, because obviously she's to some degree got to prepare them for not winning in the court, and then building up to what she says is her next part of the plan, which is turning the next general election into a de facto referendum. Now, a lot of people in opposition and other parties don't think she can do that.
Yeah, that's right. We don't.
There's an entire possibility. The way the Scottish population is split, it's pretty much 50-50. You get one poll 51-49, another one the same the other way just a month after. You know, it is split right down the middle. I wouldn't be surprised if you could turn a general election pretty much into something like that. A general election is almost like a referendum on all sorts of different things. There's no reason why it can't be focused on that, but still bring other issues into it as well. You know, the independence referendum, which we had in 2014, it wasn't just about that one issue. There were all sorts of other issues brought into that. It was about everything, because it's about the future of your country.
Oh, Jesus.
This guy. I mean, is this guy a reporter, or is he an SNP, full-time SNP show? That's what we need to ask.
I really have never heard anything as absurd as that. An election is a referendum on all sorts of issues. What are you talking about? A referendum is on one issue, my friend. It's not on. How can you have a referendum on a number of issues simultaneously?
Clues in the name. It's a general election.
You know, it's
very general. Very general.
Indeed.
I'm going to give it another go. Here we go.
A general election is almost like a referendum on all sorts of different things.
It reminds me of that Emma Harper thing. You know, it's like this is you can use plastic here and there, and we can everywhere we can use plastic, and you can get the Scottish pound is worth more. Well, you know, and all this kind of stuff. It's like it's just an absolute nonsense.
He goes and justifies his point, right, by saying that we're on a knife edge. That he says the polls are 49-51 one way, and the next week we're 51-49 the other way, and he thinks it's a good idea to then impose referendum or independence sort of stipulations on a general election when we're already this divided.
Yeah. Well, actually, I had a point about that. I had a point about that the other day. It's like they're actually going in with this idea that they want to, if they would win in 50% plus one vote. How divisive is that? They should be going in and saying, look, we want to have every person in Scotland behind us. That's what we want. We want to have, let's just say 75% or whatever it is, really everyone behind us, because we know if we're starting a new country, we have to have everyone behind us. No, but what they want to do is start off with 50 plus one. That's just a recipe for social unrest and disaster.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely.
Crazy. Moving on. Now you're up.
Well, I've got another nickname coming up. Yeah, I'm conscious of the time, guys. So, like I did say, my one was in later in the show. So my nomination is Joanna Cherry for Zoomer of the Week, guys. You may be wondering why I'm picking her, but David explained it earlier on that she thinks a leadership contest would be it's overdue.
Yeah,
it's overdue, guys. Well, I can't wait to see this dumpster fire unfold. I simply cannot wait for this leadership. I mean, can you imagine the debates, guys? The calibre of people vying to lead us, guys. Boy Racer, Hamza Youssef.
It would make the Scottish
plastic translates everywhere. Emma Harper. Eyebrows Alan Smith. The humble crofter himself, Blackfoot. Is there any other any other prominent SNP guys who would throw their hat in the ring? Maybe McKay would come out the cupboard again. Who knows? But I made this joke, I think it was 4 or 5 weeks ago, that the victim in the Patrick Grady debacle should run for the leader. Remember, it was just a throwaway comment, but maybe he can start rooting out all the sex pestery that goes on. Wait, no, see, knew that I say that? Nah, he's no chance of winning, actually. Nah, he's not going to get any votes, is he?
Right, okay, very good. I will leave it to you. Niall, you can decide. I think I'm not sure
I've not decided. I have to give it to Colin McKay. I have to. I mean, it's such a bad comment. It really is. And like I said, the division levels are already, we're so polarised, and then to then make it more polarised, it's just really, we need more unity, less division, please.
Right,
from all the media class.
Referendum on all sorts of different things.
Let's try that again. I love this.
A general election is almost like a referendum on all sorts of different things.
It's like play that in hell, once you're constantly in a loop. All right, great. That was very good. Okay, so we will be back. So get me over here. We will be back with another show next Wednesday, August the 31st, at our usual time of 7 p.m. A big thank you to Mary, who has been doing all the chat and so on. Here you got on the nice new camera. You're looking very well there. That's good, and you can speak.
Thank you. I'm on. I've got a mic as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I think it's been very lively tonight. I think this is probably our best show yet.
Great, and we've had a lot of people watching the show, and I don't need to cut you off as I would normally do. Okay, where are we at? Big thank you to donors, everyone watching. Thank you all to people who gave us the money for sound. Sound not too bad today, but will be even better next week. Thanks to UK Union Voice, United Against Separation, for their continuing support. If you are on Facebook or on Twitter, please do follow them.
Yep, and in addition, find The Majority Show on Google and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you'll never miss a show, guys.
And if you can, only if you can, please do make a donation so we can all collectively destroy the Pretender F before it gets off the ground, guys.
That's right. We can do that only if you can. I'll leave you with thought of the week. It's difficult. GERS is out, but it's difficult to fight separatists with a spreadsheet. UK just isn't a financial arrangement. We won't let a minority of toxic separatists destroy the territorial, economic, social and military integrity of the UK. That's our stand. And thank you for being with us tonight. We hope to see you again next week. Please tell your friends. We'll see you then.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.